Hello, everyone. Welcome to Telling Tales. We create atmospheric tabletop role-playing games, despite our Wednesday Into the Odd series. And we're here for you tonight to play some Cincinnati Chronicles, which is our ongoing World of Darkness anthology series. And we're currently in the thick of our Wraith the Oblivion arc. If you've never played it before or even heard of it, Wraith the Oblivion is a pretty dark and dingy nihilistic system where you play the restless dead desperately clinging on to existence against a rising tide of annihilation. So pretty normal, cheery stuff, really. Honestly, mostly like day-to-day existence in the United Kingdom at the moment. But there we go. So before we start introducing the players, let's roll out some promo. If you check down below, you'll see many links. You'll see links to YouTube and to Twitch. You're watching on one of those. Why not check out the other one? We'd really appreciate it. You'll see links to our social media, our Discord, and our Patreon. If any of those things are the kind of things that interest you, please do give them a whirl. We run 3 weekly series at the moment. Monday is Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay with Sam. Wednesdays is Into the Odd with myself, and obviously Thursday is Cincinnati Chronicles. That's what you're here watching, probably, maybe. I don't know. I don't know your life. We also run monthly one-shots. The next of which is this coming Saturday. That's Saturday, June 18th, where at 3 p.m. BST, we will be playing some more Morkborg. We did a one-shot of it last year. It was a lot of fun, one of my favorite ones that we've run. It is a doom metal TTRPG from the wonderful people at Stockholm Cartel and Free League. And what's more than just entertaining you with an actual play, we have a giveaway on it, a limited Kickstarter edition core book of Morkborg. So please do tune in. Please do join us, and you'll be in with a chance of winning that. How exciting! But even more exciting than that, even more exciting is the prospect of introducing the Wraith the Oblivion players one by one, so we can give you a bit of a rundown of what happened last time, which was our first session of Wraith. It's going to be a slightly different from our usual recaps, and you'll kind of see why, essentially. I'm going to bring on each player, they'll talk about their character, and they will also mention their the first scene they were in, and then we'll have everyone on and they'll talk about the rest of it. It'll all make sense. I promise it'll all make sense. So first up, we have Chris. Hello, Chris. Chris
Hello,
plays Brian, a lovely Wraith. Do you want to tell us a little bit about Brian and then tell us about the first scene you were involved in? Maybe if we could get a bit of character art as well.
Yeah, so Brian is a an former preemptive computer scientist responsible for early developments in databases at scale for a very large computer company, and was on the talk scene and sharing his information, driving through Cincinnati on a little bit of a layover between one industry event and the next. He died in a horrific car accident and did not quite leave. And when we joined with Brian, he was haunting the data hall where he was hot desking and discovered a young gent. Discovered a young gentleman working late who had a dog in the data center, which he was fine with. Brian was fine with that. What he wasn't fine with was the fact he was making mistakes. So Brian swooped in and used his spectral powers to, if not correct his mistakes, at least comment them out so he could come back refreshed in the morning and maybe see the error of his ways. When all of a sudden he noticed that his one of his fetters had been vanished.
Indeed, had vanished. That was on his desk. A fetter being an item still remaining in the real world, the physical world, the skin lands that helps tie a wraith to their existence. And the loss of a fetter is really not a good thing. And on that note, let's hop to our next player, who is Pierre. Pierre plays Ronan Kayat, according to, allegedly a former mob tailor. But we have to say allegedly in case the Ronan's estate comes after us.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So, Pierre, why don't you tell us just a little bit about Ronan and how the story started for him?
Yeah, he was a tailor, as you alluded to. There are no secrets in death. He did indeed tailor for some people who were both powerful and potentially a little suspicious. He did not have he's had a bit of difficulty in death because he doesn't really remember how it went, but he has an awful aching feeling that something terrible is going to happen to one of the people that he cared for immensely in life, one of the people that maybe he considered trying to do away with his connections in order to support, but he was sort of snapped out of his kind of reverie in his tailor shop, which is at this point just the upstairs portion, because the downstairs has been converted into like a retail IT tech shop that, as a ghost, he is not exactly keen on. He thinks is an awful thing, that they are replacing what little was left of him on this earth. And as he was sort of scheming and thinking about what to do to get rid of these interlopers into his domain, he noticed in the dusty sort of storage area there was a shape missing, the shape of his tailor's shears, which were his fetter too, and they had gone with not a single trace of footprints in the now thickening dust. So pretty perturbed by that.
Yes, another fetter missing, and the more sensible of our viewers who maybe didn't see last time might be able to pick up on where all these introduction scenes are going. Regardless, let's bring on our next player. Let's bring on Inga, who's playing Tammy, former athlete in life. Inga, why don't you tell us a little bit about Tammy and where we found her?
Yeah, she was a sort of up-and-coming, promising young tennis player who obviously is no more. It does sort of cling to it a little bit, and hangs out still in her old tennis courts, her old club, and occasionally some skin rides of the new players who were, to enjoy the sort of feeling of that, being able to do stuff in the real world. And so she does a bit of that. And when she goes back to the clubhouse and sees, to her, it's almost kind of a shrine, but it's sort of the area where they've got the sort of trophies and awards and stuff from all of their players. Her tennis racket, the prize among her shrine, her sort of shelf on the awards bit is missing. Again, it's another fetter. Bad news. She's not happy. She's also now on a mission to track it down.
Absolutely growing bad news for our circle of wraiths. But let's bring on our final player. Maybe our final player didn't have a fetter go missing. Maybe it's all happy for them. Let's find out. It's John. John is playing Abby, sort of slightly bitter or former author. John, tell us about Abby and tell us about, I'm sure, a fetter that did not go missing.
So Abby, in life, received some acclaim as a notable children's author, and was always eternally upset that she was not acknowledged in any way for her gritty crime dramas that she penned. But she was haunting the old bookshop that she used to work in before she was a writer, and then later do book signings and readings in. And now spends her time reading novels over the shoulders of patrons, to find her sister suddenly run into the shop and ask in tears whether a young girl, her daughter, and Abby's niece and fetter had come into the shop because she has gone missing.
Surprise. Shock and surprise. So, 4 wraiths in something of a pickle. Possibly the first time that the word pickle has been said in a Wraith the Oblivion session. But nevertheless, okay, so what we will do now, and I guess for the purposes of the recap, let's move the character art off, and we'll actually go through what the rest of the session was like now. As you can imagine, I basically didn't want to give anyone the job of, having to describe all the feta scenes, which is why I did like that. But anyway, Chris, the Wraiths all independently decided to take one course of action regarding their fetters, and why don't you tell us what that was?
Yeah, sure. Everyone decided to go to a kind of find-it lady by the name of Emily Perfect, who has some skill with the location of objects and the creation of objects. Most people walk there. I took the railroad, but when we got there, we had a discussion with her about what was to be done and what we could offer for the services of locating these objects. And but she agreed to locate our fetters, and they were all found in one location in the city. And so we were somewhat ad hocly united as a single group, and off we trudged to try and find our fetters.
Absolutely. Off to the Cincinnati Public Library, which regular viewers of Cincinnati Chronicles will, it'll leave them with something of a sinking feeling. So you set off on the way, but that journey was not without incident. And Pierre, can you let us know the kind of main obstacle in your path when you're on your way to the library from Emily Perfect's office?
Sure. Yeah, so as we were traveling along, we heard a sort of a sound that you really don't want to hear, especially if you're not, if you're perhaps aligned with the more renegade side of Wraith Society, as some of us are, which was a kind of stomping of boots, a kind of marching. We all hid in various ways. Myself and Tammy, we ducked into a nearby church, and we asked, like, fears were confirmed when an individual known by reputation as Prime sort of strode slowly in and started smelling, I think, the fact that we were not meant to be there, and perhaps he was to take us away. So yeah, he started approaching on our hiding spots, but thankfully one of his subordinates, who seemed very scared of him, quite rightly so, sort of alerted him to the fact that they had news of an individual called Yellow Dog, who is a significant figure within the renegade movement. And I think sensing bigger fish, Prime stalked away, leaving us kind of sweating and not exactly comfortable.
Absolutely. And you proceeded further on your journey towards the library. And Inga, why don't you let us know? I know we've already talked about how we're traveling, but why don't you let us know kind of how we were traveling, and also another little minor event on the way?
Yeah, so Tammy was definitely in a rush to get moving on this sort of hunt for the fetters. So she got everybody to join her. She employed her skill in Argos to travel more quickly through the Tempest. And so everybody kind of grabbed a hold, and we kind of got interrupted in this church scene, kind of moved along again. And having kind of looked into the, sort of got the weather check, it definitely had looked quite like angrily, sort of, it was a sort of raging storm. It felt like a dangerous kind of trip. And just before we kind of get to the library, there was a moment where we all kind of suddenly felt like, sort of the pressure of the air and like the wind swirling around us and things kind of flying around. And I think it did a bit of damage to a few of us before it all kind of suddenly stopped. But it felt very weird and just sort of suddenly came out of nowhere. And yeah, something roiling in the Tempest that doesn't seem like fun.
Absolutely. And speaking of not terribly fun, John, when you reach the library, why don't you tell us of the perfectly fine occurrences there?
So the first perfectly fine occurrence was that there was actually a surprisingly large gathering of wraiths around the outside of the library and going into the library. Almost as if other people were called here for some kind of purpose. We stopped and talked to one nice lady who informed us that her darling, I think it was like her cat's collar, her fetter, had similarly
a cat collar
gone missing and was also in the library. So we decided to go in because there was nothing else for it. And at the far back of the library, all of the I can't remember what the word for the living
fetters.
people
were
completely ignoring that at the back of the room was a long table with everyone's fetters laid out on it, or next to it in the case of some of the human fetters. And everyone was sort of not approaching it because it seemed really weird. Apart from me, who went running straight in, and as soon as I made contact with my niece, the entire thing went up in flames.
Yep, the table, a couple of people near the table, and pretty much all the fetters on the table are either burning or in danger of being burned. And I think that is where we will pick up, folks, rather obviously. So this table is now a massive conflagration. There is at least one man who seemed to be at someone's fetter who is staggering around like a guttering torch, wailing. You can hear kind of an eruption of panicked noise from the Skinlands, but it's nothing compared to the kind of howling in anguish of all the other restless gathered round. Now, your fetters are in a kind of different states on the table, partly because of what they are and whatnot. So let's go through one by one. Chris, your boot deck, a small card box full of old PC punch cards, that is extremely flammable and is quite close to the flames. It's going to have to be dealt with in some capacity. John, your niece had already started out of the chair in alarm on catching a glimpse of you through the shroud, and is now wailing and running as fast as her rather short legs will take her away from the flames and the conflagration. She, at least for the moment, seems to be safe. Certainly from Gino. She's not going to run back into the fire, that's for sure. Pierre, your tailor shears, they're made of stainless steel. Unless something else happens, that fire ain't going to do anything to them. I mean, if the library burns down, they'll be buried under lots of rubble. They'll still be safe, but getting to them might be tricksy. And finally, Inga. Tammy's tennis racket, just as flammable as Brian's boot deck. Neither of them are on fire yet, but they're certainly quite close to the flames. And all around you, tens of wraiths are panicked. They're, clearly some wraiths are leaping forward and using outrage or other things to try and move. One wraith seems to be sliding through the shroud and embodying themselves in front of a lot of quick witnesses, which is very illegal. And at least one person at a table nearby is sort of shuddering and arching back as if someone inside them has taken over and is desperately trying to get them to move backwards towards the table. What are we doing, folks?
Among those trying to use outrage to push that, shove, throw, bring that racket out of harm's way.
Definitely. So with that in mind, you're definitely close enough to use that. Let's have a look. Have you got the
Yeah, I think it'll just be the Wraith Grasp rather than the 2 points of Stone Hand Punch, because that seems to be more aggressive.
Sure.
So it's a spend of 1 pathos on rolling strength plus outrage. So strength plus outrage for me.
So that's Wraith Grasp. Push or lift it. Yeah, that seems pretty good. So yeah, spend 1. I'm just repeating it because I'm reading it out to take it in myself. Spend 1 pathos, roll strength and outrage. Hey, I think a few pounds of force. You know what? I think you need 2 successes on this in order to actually shove it off the table in some fashion.
I'm going to use a point of willpower on that. And I've got 5 dice to roll with. Assuming standard difficulty, that's 3 successes.
Perfect. Well, it'll use the local shroud rating, actually, and let's check what that might be. It's a pretty spooky building. I'd say it's difficulty 7. That's
1 success on the dice. But I did spend a willpower.
Yeah, you got the willpower one as well. Yeah, absolutely. In that case, you reach out. Well, why don't you describe me how you do it? You know, like there's lots of wraiths running around. You're going to have to like get through them in order to do it. But tell me how Tammy goes about it.
Just absolutely narrow focus, like just pure focus on that. Like her eyes are on it and nothing else. Like there are elbows or whatever she needs to get her, just shove her way through. But like this is like fully employing whatever physicality she has as a wraith to just absolutely put herself in the place she needs to be. And I mean, as much as she can, like forget about the damage of like throwing it as far away from the fire as she
swiping it and knocking it off the table as hard as you can. Yeah, and you can do that, absolutely. These wraiths are panicked. They largely don't know what they're doing, and you manage to kind of elbow a few of them out of the way. It takes a few steps forwards, 1 big wide slap across the table, and you feel that contact like an electric charge through your hand. You know, it's here you touch things, but it's not the same. There's not the same sensation, and you get just this flash of warmth over your hand, like a forgotten scent from your childhood running through your hand for just the briefest of seconds as you make contact with the skinlands and send your racket kind of spinning and tumbling off the table. People are definitely running around near where it is, so it's not completely out of danger, but it's also not going to get burnt up anytime soon, which is obviously a massive improvement. Is anyone else taking any particular actions? I mean, I'm guessing Chris might want to weigh in about his boot deck, assuming he's still with us. I mean, in terms of the cam call, not in a wraith way.
Okay, I think I'm back online, and I would like to intercede and try and save my punch cards. Not because they are like, I don't know. He's Brian's not doing too well with being dead because there's so many different copies of these cards. It doesn't matter if one set goes up, but these are mine. So the method I'm going to do is less shock and awe and a little bit more of a tactical kind of flicking it away with a finger, because it's not a paper, little walnut presentation box. He had this done up. It was a memento for him in life. So, but it is kind of hefty enough to kind of hoik off the table with a finger.
Sure. Absolutely. So have you got outrage as well then?
And
Chris, you still with us? Hey, you with us?
I hope so.
Yeah, there you are. So you've got is that right that you've got outrage
I can
as
hear
well?
You. I do,
Yellow?
And I think a good friend of mine is about to help with my dice pool.
Sure. So the shadow system Pierre, go ahead as Brian's shadow.
Oh, I was intending, as Brian did the flick, to use a thorn.
Ooh, okay.
Oh, you
So
little fart!
is this something that happens? Like, do you want Chris to roll first? Is that how?
I mean, I could. So the thorn I'm intending to use is Freudian slip, which is at the cost of 1 angst point, the shadow can force a wraith to make a sudden involuntary action or to make a quick unedited statement. To resist this thorn, the wraith must make a willpower roll, difficulty 7. 2 successes are necessary. The intention I have is to have it so that when he flicks it into the fire, as opposed to away from it.
Oh my holy! Right, okay.
So that's. But you say you can resist it with a willpower roll, right?
Yes, must make a willpower roll, difficulty 7. 2 successes are necessary to counter the effects of Freudian slip.
Okay.
Do you need to make a roll to activate this power? Because I do have Eidolon of 2, which I believe gives me some protection against your machination.
I don't. It doesn't say so.
Eidolon definitely does something to do with wraiths. Let's
yes.
Let's
I
have a
recall,
look.
it doesn't make it harder for the shadow, but it makes it easier for the wraith to resist the shadow. So I think it gives you
each point
something
of
for your
Eidolon
willpower.
represents 1 extra die per session that a player can add to any roll that resists some intent, plan, or ploy of the shadow, including thorns. So if you wanted to use your Eidolon on this, that would mean that you'd roll willpower plus an. If you said you had Eidolon 2, right, Chris?
Yeah.
Eidolon 2. So yeah. So go ahead and roll willpower plus 2 against the difficulty of 7.
You thought I was going to offer you a deal, did you?
The tension. Oh no!
I have had my final victory. He has been consumed by the shadow.
He has been consumed by shadow and abyss. Well then, while we were apologies, Chris is having a bad internet week at the moment, so we'll see that when we come back. We'll see what's. Oh, he might be here. He might be back with us.
I'm back. So that was difficulty 7. I got 1, 2, 3, 4 successes.
More than enough. More than enough. Back to the to consigned back to Oblivion you go, Brian Shadow.
This won't be the last of me.
All right. In that case, Chris, I believe was it Inga a strength plus outrage roll at difficulty 7? I think.
Yep. Just double checking. And I have spent a willpower.
Great. Also spend a pathos.
I needed that willpower because I got no successes on the roll.
Okay. Well, what I will say then, so I said for Tammy it would be 2 successes to get it off the table. With 1 success, what you've done is slid it a little further along the table away from the flames, but it is definitely still somewhat in danger, but not right now. But the flames are spreading, so there we go. In the meantime, I'll talk a little bit about how the scene is proceeding. But Pierre, John, Arabi, and Ronan doing anything in particular?
I think Abby might abandon these people she's just met and go run after her niece to make sure she doesn't come into another misadventure.
Sure. Absolutely. How about Ronan?
Because I have no ability to move these shears, and I don't know how hot this fire is going to burn eventually.
Probably not 1,400 degrees, which is the melting point of stainless steel.
Ideal.
I checked.
I like the way you think, Matt. I was thinking about potentially using reinforce to try to just harden them against any damage.
Sure, just in case.
just in case, because these are
They could
these
get
are precious to me.
trampled. Maybe that would tear them apart a bit.
Yeah,
Yeah,
or if this whole
absolutely.
building came down, I might actually worry that they could be destroyed.
Yeah,
So
absolutely. What is that under?
I have to. That is under flux. So I have to roll dexterity. I spend 1 pathos, and I have to roll dexterity and flux. So I'm spending my pathos and
1 pathos and 1 corpus.
and 1 corpus. Yeah, because I imbue part of myself into the
Sure,
object.
yeah. Part of you, part of your plasm, drifts off and into the object. That's pretty cool. Why don't you give us that roll then? Does it say anything about difficulty?
It doesn't say anything about the difficulty.
Then I'm guessing it's a 6.
Yeah. So yeah, am I going to spend willpower? I am going to spend a willpower to just get 1 success by default, and then I'm going to roll. Wow. Okay, I got 10, 10, 8, 8, 7. Do the 10s explode? I don't know.
No, 10s only explode if they match one of your specialities.
Okay. So so that was 1, 2, 3. So that's 5 successes, 6 successes, including the
wow. Yeah, so part of your corpus drifts off as you stand, presumably somewhat near the flames, but not immediately in them. It would be quite unusual flames wouldn't horribly damage you in the Shadowlands, but they wouldn't be particularly pleasant either. But you can see glinting almost within the heart of the conflagration now. You can see kind of the glint of sunlight and flame on your stainless steel shears, which seem to be doing perfectly fine within there, to the point where part of the table kind of like collapses in the center around where they are, and the shears just kind of fall down and kind of embed themselves in the ground like a kind of sword in the stone sort of effect, and seem to be no worse for it. So you're fairly confident with the state of your tailor's scissors. As for Abby, let's have a bit of description of what the scene is like now. So as I've said, all the other wraiths are panicking, screaming, shouting, doing whatever they can to reclaim their fetters. At least one nearby Quick has been puppeted into wading into the fire, grabbed a small toy abacus and thrashed it out of the flames, and then kind of hurled it to safety and collapsed to the ground in a mass of burning limbs. Abby, you have, it's safe to say, you've probably lost track of your niece a little bit, because the Quick are just really trying to get out of this library en masse, and it's quite difficult to track any one individual person. As you kind of look around, well, why don't you give me a roll? Why don't you give me a roll to see if you can see where she is now? And if you give me a perception plus alertness roll, please. And let's make that quite difficult, I think, actually. Let's make that probably difficulty 9, I think. Like, there's, probably 100 or so people in this library. Like, it's quite difficult. And there's loads of wraiths as well.
One success.
1 success. You see a glimpse of your niece, who we haven't named, it occurs to me, or
Charlotte.
Charlotte. As she does seem to be kind of like squeezing through people and getting out of the front doors. It sounds like your shadow has something to say.
I would like to use one of the thorns, bad luck, to force you to re-roll that 1 success die, please.
Is it just the one?
Just the 1.
It's a thing that I can roll willpower to resist.
Not unless it says you can.
Okay. It says the Wraith's player is forced to re-roll one die. The use of bad luck does not have to be announced until after the original roll is made.
Okay. Sounds like not.
Yeah, no, that's a fail.
That's a fail. Okay, you have lost sight of Charlotte then, despite what I said. So now John knows where Charlotte is, but Abby does not.
I thought I saw her, but it wasn't her.
It wasn't her.
Of course you wouldn't find her. Useless. You let her get into trouble like this, you can't even find her now.
Brutal. So, Abby, as you're desperately looking round to try and see Charlotte, you don't see her, but you see the old lady that you came in with, the restless old lady that you all came into the library with. You see her reach out towards the table and cry out in anguish as a cat collar is consumed in the flames. And then she seems to flutter and flicker around the edges before melting away entirely as she is pulled down into her own hellish harrowing, so a rent in reality that opens beneath her with a sharp cracking sound. Other cracking reports echo out through the library as other wraiths are wrenched down into the labyrinth, and it's almost, it's like being in the middle of a firefight going off, just the amount of noise and panic engendered by this. On top of this, you're all starting to feel a little bit strange, stranger than even the situation might dictate. I don't think you have any context for the sensation of time feeling like it's slowing down, but it does. Everything seems to be warping oddly, slightly around you. So I think we should capitalize on Chris's cam looking good. Chris, did you want to take any other action to try and get your punch cards off the table? Like even something as simple as rolling outrage again? Oh, I spoke too soon. This connection knows. It knows.
My machinations.
Your shadow skills are too strong, Pierre.
I'll try and temper them a bit back. I think it would be bad manners.
Back a bit. Like I know it's good RP and everything, Pierre, but
come on,
work
mate.
with the group.
Yeah.
Right. Well, is anyone else doing anything as this weird situation starts to evolve?
So, am I moving slower, or is everything moving slower?
Everything feels like it's moving slower.
Like I'm moving through treacle as well as the fire.
Yes.
And okay.
Absolutely. It's like not so much that it's more like your perceptions of. It's an odd disjoint. If it sounds weird and contradictory, that is absolutely spot on.
Is it like everywhere, or is it like, does it seem to be local to where we are, or is it just like
it's everywhere that you can see for sure, but you can't kind of perceive. Like I say, it doesn't necessarily feel maybe like time is slowing down, but like your perception of it seems to be shifting.
Can I see the others, or have they been lost?
Yeah, I think you can see everyone but Abby.
Okay. Can I see Abby's niece?
No, definitely not. You'd have to be much nearer the door, and you're by the table.
I'm at the table, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I will start slowly trying to move myself away from the table, perhaps, towards the others.
Sure.
See how much progress I can make.
Absolutely. Chris, you with us? Maybe not. I'm guessing not. People are suggesting audio only, Chris. I don't know if that'd help.
I can see him moving.
A little bit.
Okay, can you hear me?
We can hear you. Yes. Delightful.
Okay, let's see if this works then. My action, because I did hear your request, I'm going to try and save my cards. I'm not quite... If I notice this time dilation, it's just... I'm putting it down to the stress of the situation.
Yeah, sure, absolutely. So are you just making another outrage roll?
I am, yes, which costs another pathos.
Mm-hmm. Another pathos and a roll of strength plus outrage against a difficulty of 7.
And I think it's going to be one more willpower here. I think this is important enough. It's kind of what
I think so too, yeah. Saving your fetters is pretty important.
That's one success. Well, 2, because the willpower.
Fantastic. That's more than enough. The box of your punch cards is knocked off the remains of the table, which is now slowly becoming embers, and goes skittering along the floor and kind of rests neatly in a corner along one side, kind of tucked away behind behind a kind of strutted metal table. It's basically seems as far away from the billowing bonfire as it could reasonably get without, doing a lot more than that. Like Tammy experienced every time you made contact, there was that oddly familiar flush of warmth from making contact with the Skinlands. But as I said, your fetter is safe.
Great.
So excellent. This seems to be working, by the way. So
Yeah,
apologies
stable
if Chris can't keep his cam on, but we will do what we must. So as this odd sort of time dilation sensation increases, there is a change in the room. This sensation warps and feels like it's setting even further into the environment. And then a blurred figure emerges among the chaos. People kind of retreating and moving away from them. Some of them seemingly unconsciously, having not known them. Even members of the Quick are doing it in the Skinlands, although they give no sign of being able to see the figure. They are there. One moment they are not there, and then they are. Dark green robes undulate in an invisible wind around a cowled form, clearly not one of the restless, and yet here in the Shadowlands. Chains that look to be forged of the purest soul steel whip out from beneath the robes. They start to twist and writhe, seeking victims as they sink through the floor of the library. With every crack of a new rent in reality as one of the restless is pulled down into their harrowing, the figure becomes clearer and the chains become more animated, as if the torment of the wraiths is some kind of awful fuel. What are we doing?
I am backing
Leaving?
away from this individual as fast as possible.
Absolutely. The figure is between you and the door. But you can go for it if you want.
If Ronan and Brian are close enough that I can grab hold of either of them to try Argos travel.
To try and travel a bit faster through, sure. Yeah,
but if they're kind of out of reach or don't look willing to just bloody go for it, then I'll go alone.
I'm willing.
Sure.
I'm willing.
I think they're both close to you that you could give it a try. Why don't you give me a roll to see if you can get a hold of them? And shall we say that's, I think probably dexterity plus weirdly I don't think it's athletics. Here's a weird one. I think it's dexterity plus larceny. I don't know, because you're trying to grab someone without their necessarily knowledge, or we'll go with larceny. Screw it. I like it.
Cool. Larceny has no points for me. Right. The difficulty, assuming normal difficulty, I've got 1/7. 1 success.
Well, I was going to say 7. For that, you can grab either Ronan or Brian.
Which one is closer to me?
They're of equal distance from you.
All right, I'm going to roll a dice then.
No.
Ronan, your odds. Brian, you're
more.
even.
No.
Odds.
I don't believe
Ronan.
you.
I grab Ronan.
Okay, Ronan, you feel Tammy grab a hold of, I would say the back of your clothes. Your clothes are part of your corpus. It's all you. But you feel kind of like Tammy pulling on you and dragging you away from the flames.
I think I'm very disorientated. Oh, and I look round and I'm like, oh, thanks.
Sure. I would say that's taken up kind of... We're not exactly in combat rounds, as it were, but I do want to take this in stages because these things are happening almost as fast as you can react to them.
I feel I should point out that I do have to roll to see if I'm successful.
For the Argos? No, that will be next time after the next thing. Because, like I say, you just reached out and grabbed Ronan, and then next we'll see how the Argos transpires. Let's go with Brian, shall we? Chris, what is Brian going to do at this point? Assuming we've got Chris.
I am still here. What was the question? Sorry, I didn't out.
What is Brian going to do at this stage?
So, okay, I'm still close to Danger Tentacle Friend. But you did say he's between me and the door.
Yes. Oh, we may have lost Chrissy. Oh my god. No luck. We're having no luck here. John, what's Happy doing?
I am going to attempt to flee away.
Oh,
Go for it, Chris. Go for it. We've got you.
You're like an anti-shadow.
Oh, okay. So you mentioned the tentacle friend is between us and the door.
Yes.
I would like to flee further into the library away from the tentacle friend. I don't necessarily need to get out. I just want to... The Cthulhu method. I'm going to be faster than the slowest Wraith and hopefully not get dragged to whatever this gentleman's doing.
Sure, absolutely. There is in fact there's a door near you that seems to lead to a library office. You could definitely try and it's also open, so you could kind of plunge through that doorway and at least see what's on the other side, and definitely be away from this rather intimidating figure in green robes. Does that sound about right?
That's 100% what I'm going to try and do.
Great. I don't think you need to roll to do that. I think that's absolutely fine. And you kind of, as I say, kind of plunge through the door and you find yourself in a sort of library office. You know, there's a desk, there's some sort of filing cabinets and some old library logbooks. And there's also a set of wooden stairs, old wooden stairs leading downwards. Abby, how about you? What are you doing?
Just before I would like to use a thorn at this point on Inga. I'm just going to say it because the cat's kind of already out of the bag. But what I'm doing is going to spend 1 angst. I'm going to alter perceptions. And whereas the others may have seen Brian safely get to the door, Inga, your perception of the environment is that Brian is not making it out of that fire and is not surviving well at all. And
so Tammy is not going to go looking for him. Okay. Lovely. Abby, you are near this intimidating robed figure. Is there any particular action you're taking?
Am I on the other side of it so I could get out the door?
No, you're kind of flush with the figure.
Okay. I just want to... Would that work?
I don't know. Find
Sorry,
out.
I'm just very quickly reading.
Yeah, it definitely will work.
No.
Oh.
I mean, you could ask me. I can probably just tell you.
I was pondering using the open book arcanoi on this figure, but I'm in a panic situation, so
I don't know the
names.
names of all the different arcanoi. Can you tell me what the type of arcanoi is?
The one I can't pronounce.
Mnemosyne.
Mnemosyne.
Okay. What does open book do?
It triggers a subject's recall of a specific event, allowing the Nemos to experience and remember it for himself. But I think I need to be actually in a conversation with it.
Okay.
So I think I'm probably just going to try and...
and you need to know precisely what memory you want to extract as well.
Yes.
Which I assume you wouldn't.
Not unless I made a leap of logic, which I wouldn't. Yeah, I'm just gonna make for the door.
Okay.
You wouldn't be able to do this without me. Give you some help. I've got 3 dice here I'm offering to help you dodge, duck, weave your way out somehow safely.
3 dice. Can I ask what I would be rolling before I decide to accept?
You would be, if you're trying to navigate round the crush of people around you, you would have to roll strength plus athletics, I think, at the moment.
I'm going to take those 3 dice.
I mean, you can always just go through everything.
That's true.
It would just cost you corpus to do so.
And it would just be the 1 corpus, wouldn't it?
Depends how long you need to travel for. 1 corpus is someone walking through you. You're looking to go through a press of a crowd. It's going to be a few points at least.
What if I just avoid the crowd and go through the wall?
I mean, the crowd is in front of the wall.
I believe in you.
I'm going to accept the dice.
Okay. I mean, you probably still have to pass through at least a few quick because you can't affect them with your strength, but you can affect the other restless who are trying to flee.
Okay. So it's 1s on the shadow dice give an angst, right? So take an angst.
Yes.
And at a success of a difficulty of, is it 7 or 6?
The difficulty, let's say the difficulty 7.
Then that's 3 successes. 3 successes
Okay.
and an angst.
That's very good. You find yourself kind of navigating most of the press of the other restless, and now ahead of you there is just a large group of quick kind of pressing themselves against each other and desperately trying to get out of the door before a further kind of the fire can spread further and catch up with them. There are already some people around who are collapsing from inhaling smoke or who have sort of managed to be caught on fire, whether through the actions of wraiths or otherwise. It is a very unpleasant scene in the Skinlands, and you can only really, you're probably the only person with the perspective to really be able to take it in right now. And you're also a person who might also perceive something else. Can you give me a perception plus awareness roll, please? Let's call that difficulty 7 as well.
Okay. Ooh. That is, yes, 3 successes.
Okay. You're almost halted in your flight towards the door by the sudden emergence in front of you of an odd, flickering, blurring, jumbled image, a kaleidoscope of colors and that almost looks like a person, but a person flickering madly through a speeded up state of time, a person wearing vivid colored clothes who blurs into sort of semi-existence in front of you ever so briefly. And as that happens and then swiftly dies away, there is a horrific screeching noise in the library as the distended, tormented forms of 3 spectres are pulled up from below, snapping and chittering as they are leashed. The green-robed figure softly starts to glide away through the chaos of flame and panic and death. As they do so, they fade slowly, shedding the Shadowlands and Skinlands like old skins as they just leave the existence that you can perceive. They were moving towards the door, but it hardly seems to matter now. The spectres they had leashed have gone with them as well. And with that, and if you beg your indulgence as I read out the following events, because that kind of time dilation effect is snapping back into place, and an awful lot is going to happen now before you really have any chance to react. And as that effect leaves, as if you are suddenly breaching the surface of water, your senses rush back. That sense of almost stilled time pops like a bubble, and the Shadowlands are once again full of cries of despair from the restless and the quick alike. The blaze has spread to the stack of books, and blackened bits of paper are tumbling down from high above in an obscene ashen rain. Several more cracking noises come, and then the terrible creak of the last seconds before an avalanche. All the rents in reality that have opened up beneath the harrowed wraiths are joined for a single instant by a glinting spider web of white lines, and then the dam breaks. The shards between the rents tumble down into a vast howling pit, winds from deep in the tempest sending restless sprawling. All that can be seen in the pit is the violent billowing of barely glimpsed iron dark clouds, and at the center of the churning storm is a pinprick of the void that lies at the heart of the labyrinth, an incomprehensibly distant glimpse of annihilation, telescoping in your vision as if you are already lurching off an inevitable precipice. This is by far the worst, most dangerous Nihil any of you have ever encountered. Oblivion is here. You must escape its pull.
Oh, God.
I think I'm gonna randomly roll for who I pick on to go first. But yeah, it's a pretty bad situation. For anyone who is unfamiliar with the system, a Nihil is a kind of essentially the cracks under the race were also Nihils, but this is a really, really big one. It's an opening to the further into the underworld, the Tempest, on which the Shadowlands rest, and very bad things can come out of them. But you can also use them for travel, but maybe not this one, eh? So first, let's go with Chris. If Chris can hear us, what is Brian going to do? You have seen all this from the office in which you're lurking.
So, is hiding an option?
Well, the edges of the Nile you can see cracking and tumbling down into the Nile, so it definitely seems to be expanding.
And I'm kind of backed into a corner here.
You sort of are, but
I can go through.
For a start, the Nile has its own kind of gravity, and you can see most of the other restless being kind of like dragged towards the lip of it. You yourself, because you're in a little separate room, I think you're braced against the door, so you're not being pulled at the moment. If you want to make your way out, obviously the main way out of this building is through that door. There is room for you to try and scramble further away from the lip of the Nile than you are now, maybe escape its pull and get out of the door. You've probably got a better chance at doing that than Ronan and Tammy have.
Yeah, that sounds to me like the number one kind of escape plan.
Sure, absolutely. Well, in that case, can you give me... I mean, how are you going to do it? Why don't you describe to me, people could just try and run desperately as fast as they can. You could come up with a more kind of witty, intelligent solution. It's up to you. How do you think Brian would try and escape the pull of the Nile?
I'm going to actually take it on the chin and burn some corpus points, because I can move. I can become insubstantial and move through solid objects.
Correct. Yes.
So I would like to use that as my technique.
Absolutely. Yeah, go for it. Oh,
so I will,
your shadow. What is your shadow doing?
You didn't think it would be that easy, did you? And I think I'm going to use another thorn, which is called Shadow Call. You will hear a thin, piercing shriek, and I have to basically, if you're in the Tempest or you're standing at the mouth of a Nile, which
you are definitely,
yeah, you might have some friends very soon. And
can you literally pull specters out of the Nile?
It summons nearby specters.
Right.
Yes.
Right, absolutely. Well, you can go ahead and do that, but in the meantime, you've said you're willing to take some corpus damage from this, Brian. So why don't you go ahead, remove one corpus, and if you're being kind of slow and steady and just making your way through the furniture and the people as well as you can on your way away from the Nile's edge, why don't you give me a I'm going to say stamina plus stamina plus your choice of alertness or awareness roll. And because you're willing to, you've been willing to sacrifice your corpus in order to make your way through the environment, I'm going to knock the difficulty of it down to 5. So if that is agreeable to you, then go ahead.
Dice. So that's a 50-50 coin flip.
Oh, literally, you've got just one die.
I think what I'll do is I'll spend a willpower.
Sure. Yeah, that seems reasonable.
For reference, I got 4 successes on the roll I had to do, which is knocked down to 3 because I got 1-1. So that means
Sure.
three spectres are coming.
Okay.
Or the equivalent in
powerful spectres.
In powerful spectres, yes.
Sure. How'd you do on that roll, Chris?
1 success on the dice and 1 from the willpower.
That's absolutely fine then. You have escaped by kind of like passing through some kind of a few cowering quick against the wall and maybe a table and a small sort of rack of books. You have managed to carefully and by gritting your teeth and enduring the pain of parts of your corpus being ripped away, you have endured the lip of the Nile, and you are now essentially kind of free of it and are just kind of maybe halfway towards the door. We'll pick up about those spectres again in just a moment, but first let's go on to Tammy. I would say you are quite literally at the edge of the abyss. You are kind of like scrambling to not just immediately tumble down this. How are you getting out? I would also say I definitely think you still have your hand on Ronan.
Yeah, I'm trying to decide whether I ditch him.
Excellent.
Sorry.
I like at this moment while you're deciding, I'm going to be like, thank you so much.
Well, it seems like Chris might have something to say about that as your shadow as well. Go ahead, Chris.
Oh, we have to work together to get out of this. Otherwise, it's the final end. It's the final end. I'm going to offer whatever role you need to take. I'm going to offer you 2 dice, no questions asked, for the sake of our survival.
I will take those 2 dice. And I think I will take him along because I grabbed him before this happened. And I think, see it through.
Yeah.
There would be it's like a new plan to stop and think. She's not stopping and thinking. She's just doing. So I think she will try and bring Ronan along. It does increase the difficulty by 1 having the extra.
And don't forget to differentiate the shadow dice because frankly I need you to botch because I need some angst back.
Fair enough. So this is your to speed up your travel, right? This is the immediate roll. Okay. And are you because you're going to have to roll twice here, 1 for the Argos and 1 for trying to get away from the pull of the Nile. Do you want to take those shadow dice for the Argos roll or for the escape roll?
I think for the Argos roll first up.
Sure. In which case, that's spending a pathos and roll perception plus Argos at difficulty 6 with those extra shadow dice.
Okay. No botches, I'm afraid, Chris. But how many successes? Oh no, so difficulty 7 because I've got
absolutely
because you're bringing Ronan with you. Yeah.
Yeah, I've got 1 success, but a 10.
Okay. That's marked as normal speed for the mode of travel, but without incident. Okay. I would tell you what the weather is like in the Tempest with that roll as well, but you're fairly sure what it is. It is a horrific whipping storm. Here, you managed to grab Ronan, and like I say, it's not normal but without incident. What I'm going to interpret that as is you're still going to need 2 rolls to get away, and 1 will happen now, and then we'll come back to you later for the other one. But you know what I'll say? I'll say I'm guessing, and correct me if I'm wrong, that Tammy is probably going to try and get away from this in just a powerful athletic manner.
Yeah, for sheer force is what she's after.
Absolutely. Then it's a strength plus athletics roll, and that would be difficulty. I think I've set a difficulty as 7 on this, but you know what? You can bring it down to 5 for your success on the Argos roll. Rather than the speed, it's just, you know, you find ways to slip between the kind of like the streams of air and wind blowing around the entrance to the Nile.
That's still only 2 successes for me.
That's perfectly fine. You kind of grab Ronan, and Ronan, you feel yourself, like, I'm assuming you're not resisting, like being like yanked away from the edge. You were like basically like tumbling on the edge. Tammy grabbed you and is now dragging you. You're about halfway back to where Abby and Brian are. And kind of just making your way through. Obviously, as all this is happening, other wraiths are around you, desperately crawling, clawing at the floor, running forward. A few of them just literally like pulling backwards, like in a, you know, like almost like a comedy stage. You know, hook has grabbed them, and they're just being jerked backwards and tumbling through the air and plunging down into the center of this Nile with pathetic wails. Yeah. Ronan, let's go to you rather than hop to Abby, but I'm assuming you're just letting yourself be pulled along.
Yeah, I'm sort of trying to help Tammy in whatever way I can, but I think mainly I'm just being yanked, and I'm just like, thank you. And then, like, as I see like people, the other wraiths being pulled in, I just sort of, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, because like I assume they're trying to like also hitch a ride but failing.
Sure. Yeah. Well then, Abby, I would say, you know what? You were further back than Brian, and Brian only had to. I think you are not immediately affected by the gravity of the Nile. Like when it emerged, you kind of stumbled forwards towards the kind of collapsing edge of it, but like, you know, you're still quite a way away from it. So I'd say you're not in any immediate danger of being dragged in by it. Is there any particular activity you want to take?
Have I made it outside by this point?
Oh God, no! You're nowhere near outside. No, you're probably about 2/3 of the way to the door from where the flames were.
I think I'm going to keep trying to get outside.
Sure.
Because I'm safe for now, but I don't know if it'll stay that way.
Absolutely. You wheel round again away from the Nile and try and make your way towards the door. The door is less crowded with the quick and the restless now. Kind of the restless have been thinned out by a number of them either being harrowed or plunging into the Nile. Most of the quick are either collapsed on the floor of the library or have made their way out of the front. But as you take your first steps forwards, you feel something like an earthquake around you, not underneath you, but all around you, a shuddering and a wrenching as the Shadowlands is torn away from the Skinlands here. The inexorable pull of the Nile dragging the underworld away from its moorings on the flimsy foundation of the Tempest. You see, before time kind of like spun around, now it's space. There's a distension between you and the door as the distance kind of warps longer and closer again. Everything twists slightly. Further cracks appear in the wall and the air around you. It's not good. The library stretches and deforms and seems to almost spin off its axis. Getting out of the library may start to be a challenge. But you've said you're making your way forwards. Why don't you tell me how you are making your way forwards? Kind of, are you doing it really physically, just powering forwards? Are you keeping your eye? Are we physical, mental, social? What are we doing?
I think we're doing mental. So we are waiting and we are looking for opportunities. We're dashing in. We're moving tactically.
Absolutely. Well, why don't you give me then maybe do you think a wits plus awareness roll seems about right?
Yeah, that looks good.
Why don't you give me that? And that's going to be a difficulty 7, I think.
Oh, yeah. Okay, 3 successes.
Okay, that sounds great. You kind of nimbly skip your way forwards around various bits of the library, kind of tear themselves out of the ground and the walls and fly off in random directions. You weave and duck your way through them and scramble forwards. You don't feel like you're closer to the door, but logic says you must be. You have no idea at this stage if what you're seeing around you is your own perceptions or the reality of the Shadowlands. Generally, it feels like, reality is breaking down somewhat here. You have no idea if this is normal with an isle of this size or not. Right. Why don't we pick up with Brian? So, Chris, you are starting to experience this sort of warping of space as well. What are you doing at this point?
So, to quote a great author, running to. Someone once responded, "It's what I'm running from that's important." So my path is not so much to get to the door; it's just to get away from the Nile. So if I see space starting to become unusual, I'll use that to my advantage. Is there a space where I can get further away from the pit that's behind me, even if that space wasn't there a minute ago? That's my strategy.
Yeah, sure, maybe. Well, why don't you? It sounds like you're looking for a way forward. So why don't you give me a perception plus awareness roll there and see if we can take advantage of something. That's going to be a difficulty of 7, I think.
Okay. I'm going to roll these 3 dice. 2 successes.
Hey, that's good. So as the Shadowlands are sort of tearing away from their moorings, parts of the floor are starting to crack and spin upwards, and you manage to essentially grab onto one of these chunks of Shadowlands and find yourself kind of like pitched up and forwards at much more of a pace away from the Nile before being kind of like pitched onto the floor and definitely taking a bit of a tumble, but you've also definitely moved forwards a fair bit too. Why don't you give me a soak roll, please? That's just your stamina at difficulty 6.
Sorry, I lost that. Can you repeat, please?
Sure. Why don't you give me a soak roll, please? That's stamina at difficulty 6.
Hey, success! On 1 dice, might I add.
1 success. In that case, your corpus just takes 1 point of bashing damage, please. But you definitely find yourself, you're about flush with Abby. You're about, you can't tell how much closer you are to the door, but you're definitely closer. But at that point, I would also say that the pitch of noise from the Nile shifts, and it almost seems like the roaring is part of the tempest itself. That is until the thing emerges from the gaping maw in the base of the library. It is shrieking madly and slashing glinting obsidian claws at anything that's in its way. It looks like nothing more than a humanoid skeleton with a distended, copiously bleeding dog skull atop of it. It seems to be both overjoyed and incredibly angry. And the monstrous spectre is carving its way forwards. You see one of the restless split into 3 chunks that wail and dissipate as the wraith is pulled down into the labyrinth as it makes its way forwards. For whatever reason, Brian, it seems to be looking at you.
Well, first point, isn't it lucky I didn't hide in the basement?
Yeah.
Second point. Now, my list of problems has 2 items on it, and they're both at one corner of the room. So it seems like there's an easy solution to this, and I'm just going to continue to try and be as far away from this as possible.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, why don't we check in with Tammy and Ronan as they desperately trying to escape the pull of the edge of the Nile. Tammy, I'm assuming that you are just carrying on powering forwards.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, if it's, I mean, I guess it's a bit of a crowd. Like, you know, she's reasonably, you know, nimble and stuff. If there's a bit more of a having to like really, you know, weave the way through, then I guess maybe a bit more of that. But I don't know if this pull is still here. I think it's probably still more of a general forcefulness.
Sure. There are other wrestlers still around and desperately trying to escape, but the crowd is thinning. Let's put it that way. Yeah, you can definitely try and kind of power your way forwards without much of a problem. Why don't you give me another strength plus athletics roll, please? And this will be difficulty 4. The pull of the Nile has settled a bit now that it's kind of like the impact of it breaching the Shadowlands has taken place. So I think you've got a good chance there.
Five successes.
5 successes. Then you dash forward, kind of Ronan. I don't know if you're staggering or just kind of like flying through the air behind Tammy at this point.
I think I'm trying my best to keep my feet under me, just about, but like...
Sure,
yeah.
Absolutely. You kind of stagger forward, not really paying attention to anything around you. And then rising near you, Ronan, as you're turning and looking upwards, the spectre is right there. It doesn't seem to be focused on you, but it seems to be peripherally aware of you because it just claws out with one huge fist. Those glittering obsidian claws on the end of it. What are you going to do? You could attempt some kind of dodging of this, I suppose, or kind of like try and break Tammy's grip so you can fling yourself to the ground. What are you going to do?
I don't think I can use my various sculpting abilities in time. So indeed, I am going to try and just duck and weave away from this thing. I think I will, in order to get a bit more dexterity, I think I'm going to break Tammy's grip.
Sure.
And yeah.
In that case,
I don't know. I'm not that strong.
Sure. Well, what we will do with this, first of all, Tammy, I don't think, because you're focused on powering your way forwards, I don't think you're aware of the spectre, or certainly not that the spectre is slashing at Ronan. With that in mind, if Ronan seems to be trying to break your grip, are you going to let go or still hang on?
Honestly, I think I'd be still trying to hang on because I think I'm still pulling him along. That he's just, you know, I think I need to give him an extra tug.
That's absolutely fine. Well, in that case, can you roll opposed strength, please?
Oh,
so
good.
Both of you roll strength at difficulty 6, and we'll see where we are. Sounds like your shadow has something to say about this, Inga.
I'm just gonna give some positive words of encouragement. No dice this time, but oh, you can't. You won't lose them both. I know you won't lose them both.
Okay, I'm rolling. I got 1 success.
2 successes.
2 success. Well, you ain't breaking that grip, Ronan Kayat. In which case,
I yelp.
If you're trying to dodge away from the swipe of the spectre, why don't you give me a dexterity plus? Well, where do we think? Do we think athletics? Probably. I'll tell you what, dexterity plus your choice of athletics or brawl to dodge away.
Both of them are 0, but I think I'm going to be trying brawl. I feel like I'm vaguely in a defensive posture. Not that it makes any difference to the actual outcome.
Sure. Well, let's say that the I'm going to say you're going to be caught by the claws no matter what, but this will help mitigate how deeply you're hurt by them. So why don't you just give me a roll at difficulty? I'll say I'm going to up the difficulty because of that you're being held. So let's say it's a difficulty 7.
It's about now that I would love for my shadow to offer me loads of extra dice. However, they are looking extremely nonplussed about that possibility because it is desperate. What was the difficulty? Sorry, it was 7. Was it
7?
Or 8?
Yeah.
I got 3 successes.
Wow.
On 4 dice.
So those mob reflexes of Ronan's are clearly doing their work, and you manage to mostly kind of twist and flatten yourself on the floor as those claws swish over your body. Not entirely. Could you give me, please, a stamina soak roll at difficulty 6, please? It's just stamina on its own.
1 success.
Okay. In that case, you just feel the very tips of those obsidian claws rake across your side and leave great rents in your plasm as it kind of drifts off into the smoking ashen air. Take 2 lethal corpus damage, please.
Okay. Is there a way of... Is lethal corpus damage... like, at the moment, I've just got a corpus rating of, like, 5 out of a possibility of 10. Am I just removing 2, I guess?
I don't know how they're marked on the sheet particularly.
Okay.
But basically, it's just a case, as it is in most World of Darkness, that bashing is 1 slash, and then lethal fills on top of it with crosses and
2 slash.
Blah, blah, blah. I wouldn't worry too much about it, as long as you in your head know where we are, then I'm fine with that.
3.
I assumed lethal was the top track.
No.
Okay.
That is your overall, how much maximum corpus you have, I believe.
Got it.
I could be wrong. Track it however you want, just as long as you know how much bashing and how much lethal you have. So let's go back to Abby, I think. Abby, are you continuing with your method of kind of moving forwards?
Especially as some big scary dog head skeleton has come out of the hole.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
What was your role before?
It was wits and awareness.
Okay. I think that was difficulty 7 last time. Let's up it to 8 this time.
Okay.
Because the emergence of the spectre from the Nile has meant that the winds of the tempest are blowing harder again.
Oh, I got 3 10s.
Oof.
Which
Well,
don't do anything, but they're 10s.
Sure. Howling gusts of wind kind of buffet around you and send one of the restless near you kind of tumbling backwards in an uncomfortable looking sort of somersault as they fling backwards towards the Nile. You hear the roar of the spectre and a cry from the Wraith, as presumably they are wounded horribly by it. But you yourself are staying calm, making your way forwards, kind of looking for opportunities as bits of the Shadowlands peel back around you and getting yourself even closer to that door, which occasionally looks almost like it's coming towards you now and then moving away. The whole thing is pretty trippy. Brian.
Yeah, I'm almost not looking behind me at this stage and really just forging to get the hell out of this situation that contains 2 things that are far beyond my capability to understand, let alone fight.
That seems pretty sensible. How are you making your way forwards in the same manner you did last time, kind of looking to take kind of advantage of any disturbances around you?
Yeah, I think definitely. And again, like, the door is a good place to go, but if there is evidence that there's a safer path that just takes me away from the epicenter of this, even if that means going a bit tangential to where I'm going, it's 100% what I'm doing.
Okay.
And yeah, I think I will still look for ways and means to put cover between me and whatever's pursuing me, or find a thing that's moving faster than me and borrow its momentum. However,
Absolutely. Well then, why don't you give me a perception plus awareness roll? And we're going to say this is difficulty 8 as well.
I think I'm done on spending willpower, so this is just 3 dice.
Okay.
1 success.
1 success. Well, you know what you see? You see something quite unusual ahead of you along the same wall in which you kind of ducked into an office. You see a small figure lean out through the wall, a quite translucent spectral figure of a young boy in very old-fashioned clothing, who, as you kind of struggle to get past and go by, reaches out one arm and says, "Quick, come with me! Come with me! It's safe in here!"
Do you know what? I'll follow the spooky Victorian child.
He is proffering his hand for you.
Yeah. Do you know what? I maybe I'll regret this, but I will take the hand.
He grasps it and with a kind of surprising strength pulls you through the wall. Take 1 bashing corpus damage. And you find yourself in what appears to be kind of an old stock room of the library with a lot of very old books stacked around. The electric light above head is flickering as the electrics in the library are starting to suffer from the conflagration. And he kind of looks up at you and says, "Well, I don't know what's happened, but you have to go. They left, but they might be back any moment."
I don't understand what's happening. How can we get out?
Just go through that wall and then through the other one. It should take you out of the front. It is much calmer in here, it has to be said. Like the notion of just passing through walls.
Are you coming?
You know, it'll give you some corpus damage, but it'll get you out. Sorry?
I'm going to say, ask him if he's coming.
No, I can't.
Okay. Good luck, kid. Do it. Send it through the wall.
Okay. So, Brian, you plunge through that wall. Take another bashing corpus damage, please. And let us go back to Tammy and Ronan. The Spectre is kind of raging ahead of you now. So you're not immediately in danger of being slashed apart by it. You've escaped the pull of the Nile, but now you are faced with exactly the same task that Abby and Brian were in navigating the slowly disintegrating library around you. Are you doing this together? And if so, what kind of tactics are you using to do so?
I mean, I think I'll, just sort of try and yoink Ronan back, like, not that he was like on his feet, but, really sort of pull him up and be like, come on.
Did you see that thing? Okay. I think I can. I think I can maybe find a quick way out. I'm going to open the jacket, my lapel pocket, and out will fly Decima and Mortar, the names of my 2 Stygian warflies, and I will send them to try and locate the fastest passage out of this library.
Sure.
In case they can find something faster than I can.
Absolutely. Why don't? Is there any kind of role for that, or is it just kind of?
The only thing is, they are fragile. So yeah, they are. I think a little tougher than, not much tougher than flies. They might in fact be as tough as flies. So this might be a suicide mission for them.
Sure.
425. I'm just going to double check that they don't have any difficulty or anything.
Sure.
They're just flies.
Yeah, just flies. Well, they buzz off into the thick, roiling air, and you lose sight of them almost immediately, but perhaps they will come back to you with some kind of solution on a further turn. In the meantime, are you still making your way forwards with Tammy? I
Yeah.
assume.
Yeah, I think so long as I'm out of the range of the. I think I will have said, "Let me go," and then I'll have said, "Hold on to me."
Absolutely. Tammy, like,
with things sort of disintegrating, like, is there still, like, if she had a sort of fixed view of like that's the point that I'm aiming for, does that still exist, or is that like gone?
Yeah, that still exists. It's just kind of like moving backwards and forwards in your field of vision. But yeah, I mean, it does sound like the best thing Tammy could do is just power forwards as much as possible.
Yeah,
and
like,
hope that
I think if it's there and if everything's kind of wonky, or like, that she's not going to stop and like really take a lot of stock of the current surroundings.
Sure.
But if like from the quick peripheral vision everything's kind of wonky, then yeah, I think she'll stay focused on that point
just power
she's been aiming
forwards.
for.
Absolutely. Well, why don't you give me a dexterity plus athletics roll then, please? And we'll call that difficulty 7.
I will use a point of willpower. 2, 3, but 1 botch, so 2 plus my willpower.
Sure. Yeah, that's perfectly fine. You find yourself powering your way forwards, sort of keeping just that horizon point of the door of the library, which is warping and moving both backwards and forwards and kind of expanding and contracting at the same time. You feel the rush of air towards the Nile around you. You can hear the raging of the spectre, but you're not really paying attention to very much else, which is why I would like you to also make another roll, please, for either dexterity or wits plus athletics. It's just going to be a difficulty 6. I'm sure you'll manage it because your athletics is ludicrous. But Ronan also needs to roll it. So
Ronan the barbarian.
3 successes.
So you're saying dexterity plus wits?
Either dexterity or wits plus athletics.
Okay. It will be my dexterity, which is 4 dice and nothing else.
Oh, no.
One success. Oh,
damn it.
No, what were you going to say? Sorry, I didn't see.
You can't just rely on someone else to pull you out of every mess. I'm here too.
I mean, I've now seen my result. Oh, I don't know. Like,
would you have taken it if I'd gotten there slightly quicker?
I mean, always, but like that's just me with dice. But I'm happy, like, either way, to either accept or deny. I have no idea if 1 success is good enough. So
it's your choice.
If you're happy to, I will take any deal offered.
Yeah,
sure. I'll roll those 2 dice.
Make sure to say if one of them's a 1.
Neither of them are a 1. Were you saying it's difficulty 7?
I think I just said it was 6.
Okay, well in that case I got 1 extra success from that.
Okay.
No botches.
In that case, Tammy and Ronan, you both manage to weave around chunks of the Shadowlands as they kind of rise up and fling through the air as you power your way forwards. So neither of you are battered unpleasantly by bits of reality on your way. So that's nice.
Question.
Yes.
Would you count that as Ronan and Tammy's turn, even though we're not officially in initiative?
Yeah, sure. Yes.
In that case, I think you can. I think you can go a bit harder, Ronan. I believe in you. I am offering one of my thorns, wherein Ronan can take an extra action, but loses a pathos and gains an angst.
I will accept that. So I lose a pathos,
and I gain an angst.
And I can take an extra action.
Mm-hmm. Would you like to use that extra action to look through your fly's eyes?
Yeah. Although that will drain my pathos, but yeah, sure. That does make sense. I was going to say sort of extra scouting, basically. So I'm going to spend those 2 pathos. I'm now on 1 pathos.
Wow.
And yeah, I'm going to try and scout, see if there's a better way. Oh, yeah.
Sure. It's worth noting for regaining pathos, by the way, you either have to use one of your passions, or it's worth noting if anyone has the Memoriam background, that once a session you can roll Memoriam at difficulty 8 with each success granting 1 point of pathos. So if anyone wants to do that, that's absolutely fine. What were your shadow flies called again, Ronan? Sorry.
They were called Decima and Mortar.
Decima and Mortar. Well, they are flickering through the air high up in the library, where kind of the flames have quite yet to reach, although at least one of the shelves, kind of flames from it, is licking the glass ceiling of the library, which is giving out a rather alarming creaking noise. As they flicker around, they see that in the side rooms nearby, the tempest seems to be raging a bit more dully, whether it's the walls or just the distance from the Nile, you're not sure. But one of them also catches a glimpse of Brian out of the vast front windows of the library, kind of emerging, kind of staggering out into the street, kind of passing through the final wall and out into kind of like a rather panicked street full of quick and sort of the few restless that remain fleeing the area. So the side rooms might be a good bet.
Yeah, Tammy, I think I might have found a way over there, and I sort of indicate to this one of these side rooms that we've identified. It's closer. We can go through the walls.
I will take a quick glance that way. If it looks roughly as described, it's a wall. It's not too far.
Sure. Yeah.
Real start, change of direction, and yank him the other way to.
Absolutely.
The wall.
Absolutely. Abby, you feel like you are closing in on the door now. Are you using your same tactics and just making another roll?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. So that was, I believe, wits plus awareness, and let's say it's difficulty 6.
Okay.
More dice if you want them. We've got to do this together. 3 dice on the table if you want them.
I think I can do this on my own. I can absolutely do this on my own. 3 successes.
So you find the calmness in the storm. You remain focused on those front doors because they can't be doing that. They absolutely can't be. They must be where you think they are. And you pitch forward and find yourself sprawling out on the pavement in front of the library. The quick and the restless kind of milling around the street, cars having come to a standstill. You hear the distant sound, the echoing sound of sirens in the Skinlands, presumably as the fire service is on their way here in some capacity. Bursting out of a wall nearby you emerges Brian. Brian, go ahead and take another 2 bash and corpus damage, please, for kind of making your way through the walls of those side rooms. But you are also now out onto the street. The Shadowlands here are unmooring in a lesser but similar way to those inside the library. So everything is juddering and coming apart just a little bit. But you certainly don't feel the pull of the Nile in the same way. The Spectre doesn't seem to be emerging from the library. And at least for the moment, you seem out of immediate, I would say mortal peril, but, you're already kind of past the mortal peril thing. Yes.
So insensitive.
I'll be kind of, I don't know if, because I'm probably not out of breath because there's no such thing as breath, but I'll probably still be doubled over, kind of effectively panting, trying to collect myself after that.
Sure. Back inside, Tammy and Ronan, you find that the side rooms do exactly for you what they did for Brian. You're going to have to take another 2 points of bashing corpus if you want to emerge out onto the street alongside Abby and Brian. I assume you're happy to do that. Happy.
Yes.
Content with it.
If I run out of bashing damage, I assume it
Mhm.
stacks up to the next level.
I'm not sure about that. Why? Are you about to do that?
I don't think so, because I think last session I took 1 damage that was bashing because I also went through a door and it wasn't lethal. So I think I've taken a total of now 3 bashing damage and 2 lethal, which still leaves me above positive. But
yeah, I think it'll be fine for now.
Yeah.
I'm going to actually do a bit more looking up of damage before next session, but it should be fine for now.
I feel pretty beat up.
Yeah, you feel your grip on your kind of holding your form together somewhat tenuous, and maybe there's like slight drifts of pale ectoplasm kind of like emerging from around you as you scramble back to your feet on the city street. It's worth noting you've all seen each other emerge. As I say, the Tempest is not content in the Nile alone. There are seams splitting open across buildings and the pavement sporadically. It's definitely you're not quite on solid ground just yet. There seems to be an odd blur in the air, kind of on either side, like to a certain extent on each end of the street. That you can't see very well past, but certainly within the range of the blur, there are still, the Shadowlands is still a very unstable place right here.
Is there or would I know whether it is, more dangerous to travel through the Tempest when wonky stuff like this is going on, or is it much the same as any kind of, if you check the weather?
Oh, like using Argos and stuff. No, it's super dangerous.
Yeah. Okay.
It's pretty dangerous right now. Yep.
Yeah.
You wouldn't want to botch an Argos roll when the Tempest is this nasty.
Okay.
Yeah. Sorry, John has answered in private chat. Yeah. So basically, if you fill up on bashing damage, you then go back and start filling in them to lethal. And then when you're on full lethal corpus, you enter a harrowing in the same way that those unfortunate Wraiths did when one of their fetters were destroyed. So, yeah. Watch out for that. But you do also have access to healing as long as you have some Pathos. You got Pathos, right, Pierre? So, yeah.
So we've emerged. Then are we near to Abby and Brian as well?
Yeah. You're very proximate to each other.
Might do a small double take, seeing Brian is out and safe and okay. But swiftly move past it and say, "We've got to get out of here. Run."
Agreed.
But what about Charlotte?
If she's not in there, then she must have run too.
Yeah, okay.
Abby, can you roll perception plus alertness, please? Difficulty 9.
Yes. One success.
Okay. You catch a glimpse, quite briefly, of Charlotte alongside a number of other individuals gathered around an ambulance that has arrived. They've all kind of had, despite the warmth of the day, they all have had sort of, not coats, but like what's the emergency? Yeah, an emergency blanket wrapped around them. Charlotte looks like she is precisely of the age where she probably wants to burst out into tears at what's happened to her, but also of the age where she also doesn't want to do that. And you can see her lip is quivering, and she's kind of looking up at the strangers around her, clearly kind of also looking around to try and see her mother somewhere. But she does seem safe and in the hands of alive medical personnel.
Okay, let's get out of here.
Okay. I'm assuming we're heading for that kind of odd, slightly blurry, miragey effect that seems to be sort of covering each end of this street.
Yeah, to try and get out of its sphere of influence.
Yeah, sure. And that turns out to be a very good turn of phrase, Ronan Kayat, because that kind of odd barrier is perfectly, you pass through it perfectly normally, and then looking behind you, all you can see is a slowly expanding orb of murky, swirling dimness. From the outside, you can look around the street and everything around you is fine, but back where you've come from, there does seem to be this huge globe of odd, as I say, kind of swirling murkiness that seems to be emerging slowly from the Nile and rolling over Shadowlands and Skinlands alike, although obviously the Quick cannot perceive it in any way. Yeah, it looks like bad news.
Sorry, did you say, is it like moving? Is it growing?
Very slowly. So now you're on the other side of it. It's kind of slowly coming towards you.
How close is this to any of our haunts?
Not very close. Your haunts are in other parts of Cincinnati, but
We've got to keep moving.
What is going on? Does anyone know what's going on?
I think we've got to figure that out when it's not right on our feet. Like we've got to move.
Are you basically picking a direction and fleeing?
Surely someone in the city knows. Just if I could just work out what one of the 5 impossible things that just happened is, I'd be happy. I'd be content.
I mean,
at least
this sounds like something authorities would be interested in. Maybe. I mean, a bunch of restless just died, disappeared.
I'm safe saying that you're all been wraiths long enough to know what a harrowing is. So you are aware what's happened to them. They've been pulled down into the labyrinth into effectively their own personal hell for a while, and sometimes they come out from that, and sometimes they don't.
Yeah. I don't know. My only contact is, well, Yellow Dog. I think I could possibly ask him. I don't know. He's
kind of going the opposite direction there from going to the authorities, but
well,
there are different powerful figures within this city. I don't think all authority comes from the top.
I already owe that perfect lady a favor. I'd rather spread my debt around.
So is the idea to leave the immediate area, go seek your contacts, and try and find out what the hell might be going on?
Yeah. By the way, were my flies okay?
Yes, they have returned. I thought you were going to say, was my fly open during all that? They have returned and are safely tucked away into your breast pocket.
Matt, is there any sense? I mean, obviously, like threw the tennis racket out away from the fire, but it's still in this awful murky orb. Does that? Do we feel any?
You
danger?
Currently do not feel that your fetter is being torn away from your psyche. No. With the state of it, and we know, the library gets a bit gutted. I'm perfectly happy to see, you're not going to have to come back here in a later scene and rescue something from the fire. The fetters, after being knocked off the conflagration, definitely have some form of plot armor on them. So, okay, so we're just kind of generally retreating from the area and heading towards and regrouping and heading towards some form of contact. Well, as you do retreat from the area, on leaving the street, you can see lesser but still signs of the disturbance of the raging tempest and the Nile nearby. Some buildings have odd kind of cracks in them. There is a small sort of fizzing rent in the sky above towards one side, and as you pass a small side street like an alleyway, there is a throbbing distortion in the air as if something grotesque and bulbous is trying to push its way through. But you manage to sort of scramble through that. You can't see any other kind of restless sort of around you now that everyone has completely dispersed. They looked very keen on getting away from here as fast as possible. And even now, kind of, you can hear crowds of quick kind of behind you, the dull, echoey noise of their lives kind of back as emergency services are arriving and crowds are gathering to gawk. And as you do so, as you kind of emerge in from this side street that you've been moving down into a larger one, you pass a large grey stone building, maybe a kind of an old tenement flat that has now been remade into offices or warehouse space. And as you do so, could everyone please roll perception plus awareness at difficulty 7? Four, 1, 2.
I botched.
You botched. In that case,
I'm just shook.
Yeah, you are just shook. And you know what? I'll interpret that botch as the other 3 individuals see the figure perched on top of this greystone building like some kind of gargoyle, and they see that figure and kind of stop and look up wide-eyed. Brian, you only notice that your companions are looking upwards, and as you look up and see the rather death-like figure up on top of the kind of almost the ramparts of this old stone building, I'm going to say you give something of a cry and collapse backwards onto the pavement in shock. You've been through a lot, and this is a somewhat foreboding figure. And you know what? I'm going to also say that Brian his instinct might immediately think that this is the figure from the library, because in some ways they're similar. This individual is robed and hooded, albeit in black with a glittering silver thread sewing the various parts of their garment together. Their robes, however, stay reassuringly still and cloth-like as they grasp a lantern in one hand, shining an oddly calming light down on you and around, despite the warmth and the heat of the midsummer day. Even here in the Shadowlands, it's somewhat bright in the sun. I think we described it in the first session as in the sun, it's almost like stark and unpleasant, like an overexposure. But this lantern, the light from it is soft and gentle but powerful. And as the figure holds that lantern up, they say in a voice I have chosen to demarcate in my notes as in all capitals, you must leave. You must seek sanctuary.
Sanctuary? Where might we find sanctuary?
What safety remains can be found behind the walls of the citadel. Go there and do not emerge until the winds quiet and the abyss stills. Send others there if you can. The figure stands on top of the building, and with a scrape of iron on stone, he hefts a huge scythe that almost dwarfs him. Can any of you, and this is your choice whether you do it, how much attention you've paid to Wraith culture and society since you have arrived here. Those of you who do want to make the roll, if you feel you have paid some attention, go ahead and roll intelligence plus occult, please.
I I don't feel like I would have, but I, as a shadow, I'm happy to offer dice to Brian.
I'm actually. Do you know what? Actually, if you're as a shadow, if you're offering the dice, because Brian has not paid very much attention, but if the shadow is giving me console, then I'll actually make that roll based on what the shadow is telling me. So I'll take those dice.
In the back of your mind. So yeah, I'll offer you 3 dice.
Okay. Abby rolled 3 successes. Did you roll anything, Tammy?
Don't think this
Oh my
is
God.
14.
No angst for you, Pierre. 4 successes. So whatever you told me was bang on.
Wow. Here's how I'm interpreting that, because I'm going to factor your botch into and like your kind of lack of general awareness around this, Brian. So what Abby knows now, I don't want to kind of speak out because I think it's more effective for the players to say this. John, do you know what this figure is? How much reading did you do about Wraith, John?
I know I could probably figure out from the huge scythe that this is a Reaper.
Yes. It's a specific kind of Reaper. But that's fine. If you know or you don't know, that's fine.
I think I don't know. I was slightly hazy on what the Reapers actually.
That's fine. Well, Reapers take freshly born wraiths from their calls, some for good purposes, some for horrible purposes, and in one way or another introduce them to the underworld. This is a very specific. The robe, the scythe, and the lantern mark this out as a very specific kind of Reaper, and a very, very old one, who you have heard of only in rambling tales in the darkest portions of the underworld. Brian, something stirs in you, a memory, a screech, a cry, an impact, the sound of voices, one of them flickering through a cool night air, saying, "We're losing him." And then nothingness for what seemed like an eternity, and a sensation of thrashing, of screaming, and something closing in around you, not letting you move as you'd like. And then sudden light, sensation returned, the feeling of old skin peeling back over your corpus, and a figure standing over you in a robe, a scythe, and a lantern. You don't know if it's this individual you met, but you have a feeling that you were ushered into the underworld by someone very similar. As I say, he has stood and hefted that huge scythe. I must sail onwards. I will try to close the breach. But come victory or oblivion, it is too late for calm waters. The maelstrom is upon us. You must seek sanctuary. With that, silver and white wings spill out from the robes like hastily spun spiderwebs. And the ferryman soars over the tops of the buildings towards the library, trailing a colossal scythe behind him in one hand. In seconds, he is out of sight. And I think we will leave the session there. Yes, for anyone curious, a ferryman is a very particular kind of very old and powerful Reaper who were effectively a kind of guild or secret society of individuals who worked directly with the semi-mythical figure known as Charon, the founder of Stygia, sort of the effectively the emperor of the wraiths of the Dark Kingdom of Iron for millennia until his disappearance at the time of the last great maelstrom which was in World War II. The ferrymen have since become almost kind of urban legends among the wraiths, only really showing themselves at times of great need, great stress, or some other rumors say times of great darkness that they may or may not be involved in directly themselves. So there we go. Wraith Oblivion.
So I would like... I know this is kind of cheeky, but I was trying to find a good point to do it. But can I please roll my memoriam to try and regain some
You know what?
points?
Everyone can roll it. If they have memoriam, go ahead and roll it to recover pathos. That's absolutely fine. Yeah, absolutely. If you don't do it before the end, do it at the end. That's fine.
I got
what I was
two
going
fates.
to do... what I was going to do to kind of weave it in was just after all of this chaos settles down, Brian will kind of find an ATM and just remind himself that this thing only works because of a lot of
Because
code
of his code. Yeah. That memoriam roll is difficulty 8. Remember that, by the way, folks. But
It's only one success, but it's better than nothing.
Better than nothing. There we go. So there's Wraith, friends. Feel free to pop your comments and questions in the chat. Thank you for joining us. I'll do a little bit of promo before we go. So look below. There's links. You know that. Links to YouTube, links to Twitch, social media, Discord, and Patreon. These are all things that you can visit and enjoy with the brief span allocated to you. We run 3 weekly shows here on Twitch. Monday is Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay with Sam as current GM. Wednesday is Into the Odd, which I am also GM for. And Thursday is, of course, this, Cincinnati Chronicles. We are halfway through our Wraith the Oblivion arc. Coming up after that will be Changeling the Dreaming. Wow, we'll have wrapped this all up, maybe. Yeah, that'll be good fun. We also run one-shots, one a month usually. The next one is this Saturday. That's Saturday the 18th of June, where at 3 o'clock in the afternoon BST, we will be playing some more Mork Borg. We've played it before. If you want to check out that first one-shot, it's over on our YouTube. And even more than just a one-shot, we will also be running a giveaway for a lovely, fresh, good as new copy of the limited Kickstarter edition of Mork Borg. So please join us if you want an opportunity to win that. We've had a couple of follows today from J. Cole Jr. and Jason Dubu. So thank you for those follows. John, do you want to sling some comments our way, please? Don't kick food. Going to reuse this one. Happy Wraith Thursday. That was debuted on Into the Odd yesterday. It's more appropriate here. Inga, I will take any deal offered. Ronan sounds like a strong negotiator.
You're damn right.
Whatever you got, I'll take it.
Look,
there's a psyche that's going to survive a long
Congratulations on your promotion to the new Brexit minister job.
Yes. Oh God.
Yeah.
I mean,
Look, I made a name for myself on this channel as someone who always takes deals. And you give me a mechanic in this game that allows people to give deals and me to take them, and you expect me not to?
I think it probably
That's
works
why I
quite
took
well
it.
Thematically, like as well for characters, is why you've got so many connections and friends that you're just saying yes to everything, yes to life, or
your shadow made you an offer you couldn't refuse.
Oh man, oh yes,
time dance.
I really did like the references. It's
all crossing over. It's all a big meta plot. Yeah,
indeed.
Steve, congrats on weathering the internet storms. Well, mostly. Definitely helped to go audio only for Chris, but hopefully we'll have his lovely face back just as soon as the internet allows. What we got else? The PvP of the opposed strength roll. Yeah. Brutal.
Yeah, it always feels, and also just like the Wraith stuff. Like if I die to a spectre that I have summoned for another player,
yeah,
I mean, it's gonna be great.
That would be fun. Well, it was going to catch up with Brian, but then
Made a
More
good move.
reference, right? The little boy ghost
Indeed.
saving Brian's
Yeah,
bacon.
I was kind of almost glad to see the little terrifying blighter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that kind of appropriate because you were the one to see and talk to him in Mage, weren't you? So
Yeah, crazy.
there we go.
He was the third Spectre.
Little
You
boy's
remind-
not a spectre. Not a spectre. I would simply not be in this library. Yeah. Well,
That was my whole strategy, and it worked.
but unfortunately, you decided to play in a game whose GM's general attitude towards player agency is "fuck that." So
No escaping the library.
No, it's
Space and
not.
time
It's
is
not.
dilating.
It's not. I will confess that player agency in Cincinnati Chronicles is even further below what it would be in my other series. But everyone understands that and is along for the ride in the stories we have to tell in certain ways so that they work.
It is a good ride.
Yeah. I don't even know how to read that out from Clockwork Kobold.
It was a wave from Clockwork Kobold who pops up every now and again. But as they said something in chat, I thought I'd wave back.
Wave back. Thank you.
Cobra!
Could always make a little Chris plushie puppet in case of future outages. I'm surprised that Chris does not have a plushie puppet of himself. He has a plushie puppet of everything else.
Yes.
But
Pretty much all other objects.
Is your internet good enough that you could come on and show us the plushie you literally showed us before the stream began?
Let's see what happens.
Let's see what happens.
the one that first broke
I was-
your internet.
Yeah.
Okay, let's see. Video online.
Oh,
Oh,
Yes.
there we go.
it is a
Oh,
tiny,
wow.
beautiful
It's a cactus.
Cat.
The fact that you can pronounce that is very impressive.
Yeah.
Cactus.
Cactus.
has-
Cactus.
He's worked hard at it, and now it's a transferable skill. So there we go. All right, folks. Thanks very much for watching. Thanks to my wonderful players, and we will see you next week. I think. Yes, I think so. For our next episode of Wraith the Oblivion. Do join us for Morkborg on Saturday. Why would you not? Why would you not? You might win a book. Who knows?
It'll be amazing.
Yeah. We'll catch you soon. Bye bye, everyone. Take care.
Bye bye.